Hi, this is Peter Guerrera, and I'm interviewing today co-producers of a film called Decimation at the Port Townsend Film Festival, the 14th Port Townsend Film Festival here in Port Townsend, Washington, at the end of September of 2013. So with me today is Stefan, Hajek, and Rosalie Miller, the co-producers of the film Decimation. Welcome, Stefan.
Thank you for having us.
Stefan.
Yeah.
I had a chance to see the film, and it's been a well-received film. It was the winner of a special jury prize in the Seattle International Film Festival, and it also was selected at the Carmel, the Rhode Island, and the Tacoma Film Festivals.
Correct.
So it's made the rounds, and it's getting noticed.
Oh, absolutely.
That's always exciting for a filmmaker, isn't it?
It is. It's nice to have some validation. You know, a lot of us, we work really hard, so it's good to have that.
Absolutely.
It's the icing on the cake.
I work with the local radio station, and sometimes you're on the air and you're wondering, is anybody listening?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have an audience. It's good to actually make a film and have it be seen. That's really the goal.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what film festivals like the Port Townsend Film Festival accomplish. It gives independent filmmakers like yourselves an opportunity to be seen and to have the stories that you find important and or worthwhile telling to be actually seen by a wider audience and for people to be thoughtful and to react to that.
Absolutely.
So decimation. Decimation is the term we kind of use imprecisely. You know, we say, oh my God, I was decimated by that. But decimation actually has an origin. It's a very precise word. It has a precise meaning. Could you tell our audience a little bit about what it means in the context of this film?
Okay.
Well, the writer and director and editor, Wade Jackson, wrote it specifically, used that title specifically because it's a story about 10 men, and 9 of them are forced. Well, all of them are choose to force one of them who will be executed by the other 9. And so, you know, the title Decimation, you know, Deci being 10, was specifically chosen.
And these are men who have been accused during World War II in Russia, on the Russian front, I guess. They've been accused of cowardness or being, not being soldierly enough under some horrific conditions. And the decimation punishment, which is to single out a 10 people or a 1 person out of 10 to be punished, actually is a Roman, stems from the Roman legions, the Roman armies, and was used to instill discipline in the military.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yes, it is, and here it's a punishment that a general, I believe, in this story.
Right, played by Richard Carmen.
Yeah.
The general in the very beginning of the story is speaking to the regiment colonel and brings up that punishment as an example of something to use.
And it's an extreme form of punishment. It's meant to set an example and to encourage young men who otherwise might flee the battle to stay there because the consequences of doing that are more severe than the horrific circumstances they face. What inspired this film? Why this particular story?
I know. I wish Wade was here because this is his baby. You know, in a way. I mean, he's the writer and.
Well, actually, this was asked last night at the Q&A for the film, and I think that more than the story itself is actually born from the challenge that he and the DP, Nick Hall, wanted to. The last film that they did was grandiose scenes, a lot of outdoor spaces, very small cast, and they wanted to see if they could work with a larger cast and do it all in a
contained,
very
location.
contained space in a very short span of time, which is the 24-hour or 12-hour time period.
Yeah, 12 hours.
So this was shot in a 12-hour time.
Oh no.
Well.
No,
the
several
setting of the
days.
story is
Yeah,
set
it
in
was
12
several
hours.
days.
How long did it take to shoot it?
It was almost 6 days. Yeah.
It was-
6
it
days.
was
We shot it in
pretty
Cedar
short.
Woolley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pretty typical for, short films, I don't know how many pages the script was.
This was
but-
it was a pretty bold shoot because
Yeah.
it was, it's a 30-minute film, and that means that the script was somewhere around 30 pages, and so we really probably could have used 2 or 3 extra days, but we everybody went out there and just worked extremely hard to get this shot in the 5-day span that we had to do it. We had some extremely long days, and it was appropriate for the cast because it was a little bit of a punishing schedule, and we were outdoors in the dirt, no electricity, and I think it probably helped the cast themselves to do the right work.
So it resulted in the inspiration for this story, for this film, resulted in a very well crafted, I thought, movie that was filled with suspense up until the end, and it really engaged the viewer. There's a tension in this film,
Yeah.
and I think each of the actors who played the 10 soldiers, each did their own part to maintain that level of suspense and tension throughout the film, and did quite a remarkable job at that. The movie's been compared to All Quiet on the Western Front and 12 Angry Men. Is this an apt comparison?
Oh, what do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think that was definitely what partially inspired Wade, too, the director. Yeah, I think the psychology of it, I think, there's something very reminiscent, especially with 12 Angry Men, having these diverse people, these diverse personalities, but they're all contained in one space under these dire given circumstances. And there's this common theme between all of them, but you see how they each sort of deal with like this sense of loss or like pining and mourning, and I think that there's a lot of similarities, especially 12 Angry. I'm a big fan of 12 Angry Men, so I know that a little bit more than the other. But
Yeah, and I think that they're both on the war film front. That all on the Western Front. I think that was an inspiration for just doing this kind of period.
Yeah, and when you think of All
Yeah.
Quiet on the Western Front, that's like
Yeah.
a classic anti-war movie, which doesn't preach. It simply shows it from a very personal point of view.
I think that
The
was
terror
the key,
and horrors of
right?
war.
The showing the real humanity that these men were facing. I mean, the idea that you're going to be punished for not wanting to fight,
Right.
and be basically forced to kill each other as a punishment is a pretty crazy way to look at things, and to show the inhumanity of war, and especially during that time under Stalin's rule, some of the choices that were made.
Kickstarter has become a fairly common way to raise funds, and on your Kickstarter page, you talk about a couple things that this movie intended to convey. One was that when we forget history, we're apt to repeat it. The second is obviously that anti-war theme that we were just talking about. And the third is not to be forgetful of the sacrifices made by prior generations. That we basically stand on the work and sacrifices made by others who came before us. That's a lot to try to convey in a short movie.
Well, there's still has to be a really high intention, to put yourself through the filmmaking process, and I think that you do your very best to meet your intentions, and you can never tell how you're going to impact others when they see the film, and so you just do your very best to tell the story honestly, and you can't control the impact that it's going to have on people or how they're going to receive it. So, that was definitely the intention, and we hope that it impacts everyone, not the same, but differently, and that they take something away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You're both co-producers of this film. How did you each get involved in this particular film? How did you come to this?
Well, he's really the producer, and I came on as a co-producer. Stefan, he has a previous relationship with the director and DP, Wade and Nick, and had worked on a film with them previously, and so he sort of brought me into the mix on this film, and I was kind of, backed him up with everything that he was doing as the producer. And during the actual filming, so during production, which happened in early September of last year, I was spending time in Canada, so I wasn't actually physically there, but I was doing everything up until that point and then afterwards. And just so many hats, wearing so many hats.
Yeah, I think that it was, I think that producing on an independent film level was much different than having a full budget, because as a producer you wind up wearing a number of different hats, and all you want to do is fill in all the holes of what needs to be set up, logistics, and we were just lucky enough to have some really dedicated, very creative people come on board and really help us.
And also,
what was the challenge for you with this particular film? Was there anything that piqued your interest in the subject matter, in the way it was scripted, or was it just a matter of working with this particular team of filmmakers?
I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah,
I had worked with Wade and Nick on a film called 160 Acres, probably a year prior, just after we had moved to Seattle, and they crafted a really compelling imagery, and just edited together a really strong film, I thought. And so when they approached me and another actor, Richard Carmen, about how we might help them put together this film, I just said I would be interested in helping to produce this. And us both having done some producing in the past, I said, well, I would really love to have some backup, if we're going to take this on. And so we both just kind of came on and started working on how we were going to raise funds and how all the logistics were going to fall into place, locations, casting, everything. So it was a big undertaking.
So you mentioned that you're relatively newcomers to the Pacific Northwest, and this is a Pacific Northwest film. It's Pacific Northwest crew.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's filmed in a barn in Cedar Woolley, Washington, and it very much is intended to showcase the talents and creative energies of the Pacific Northwest.
Absolutely.
How did you come to the Pacific Northwest in your respective careers? I know that you're, Rosalie, you're from Kentucky, and Stefan, you're from Georgia.
Correct.
And you come by way of Los Angeles. So what is it like to be working with a Northwest film crew?
it's it's different being up here. There's definitely more of a community feel, in the indie world in terms of filmmaking up here. Very different from Los Angeles. It's like comparing apples and oranges. I lived in Portland, Oregon for a few years before I moved down to LA, and so I was pining to come back up here. I feel at home here. As a filmmaker myself, I feel very supported, and all these people are like my friends now, and a lot of them.
It's a very
I didn't know
community.
a lot of them, when I came on board to make the film. So so much has happened since the making of this too, just within a year. But it is very different, and
it's community in that it very tightly knit. The Pacific Northwest film community is very tightly knit and very encouraging of each other's work.
It's encouraging. How else does that inform the nature of film that's produced here in the Northwest? What's unique about producing a film in the Northwest? What makes that film unique? You talked about a sense of community.
I can speak on my behalf as a woman filmmaker, but hands down, being up here, a lot of women are in the forefront in filmmaking, predominantly in the independent circuit in Seattle and the surrounding areas. And so as a woman filmmaker, I feel like that is a different shift from working in Los Angeles and being a female filmmaker there. So that's something that was completely highly noticed, like right off the bat when I first moved up here. So that's something that I see that exists here that might not exist everywhere else. So very
it's I just think that the difference between where we've lived elsewhere and the Pacific Northwest is that the community itself is very supportive of each other and just want to really build a larger community. Everybody wants to grow together. And so I think that it's been very encouraging to be able to find like minds and be able to be artistic and encouraged to be that way.
I mean, it's definitely, you know, it's on a smaller scale, so for me, you know, as a beginning filmmaker, I feel like there's certain things, certain goals that I can achieve that feel more attainable, you know, than perhaps sort of seeking that out in Los Angeles. It's just so vast, and, you know, there's a lot of oversaturation, and so, yeah, it just, right now, it just feels like there's a lot of possibility, and it's more attainable, you know, to do something on a low budget and succeed at that.
And the Port Townsend Film Festival is part of that effort to support and sustain the Northwest independent film industry and filmmakers who are working to create their unique stories and images here in the Northwest. I wanted to go back a little bit to the film because the film really, I think, presents really interesting issues for the viewer. One is this issue of courage, cowardice, and courage and heroism, because these are 10 men who are accused of being cowards. Yet in this film, we see that they each personally, in some way, exhibit elements of heroism, and I found that to be a really interesting take on human nature. And that this particular film managed to very, very nicely show that the issue of how you judge someone to be, you know, a coward or a strong presence is very, you know, is usually very superficial. There were two characters in particular that I thought changed or that exhibited this. One was the captain, the leader of the men who were accused,
Right.
and the other was the young conscript, the very idealistic the youngest person in the crew, and they each, in their own way, exhibited, you know, personal heroic values, despite the fact that they were accused of being cowards. Could you say a little bit about you know, each of those characters?
Well,
Which character, by the way, did you play in the movie?
I played the more thuggish,
Yeah.
prisoner number 4.
But you had a bit of an arc in your own character as well, I think.
I did to a certain extent,
You know.
but a lot of my character's motivations were more self-serving, and my character was very anti-government. But as far as the characters you're speaking of, Roy Stanton's character, I believe he's prisoner number 1. He was. It was brilliantly played, but he is definitely not. He doesn't believe in fighting for the government. He just does it. He believes that it's all, you know, superficial, and we're not really fighting for anything. But he does believe in humanity, and he believes in his fellow comrades. Like you know, in the end, he finds his courage just by keeping this, you know, volunteering to die for someone else. And then Andrew Bosch played, I think it was prisoner number 10, and his, you know, at the end, basically just discovering that his courage, like he has to face the firing squad in order to find his courage, which I don't want to, spoiler alert, but...
There's definitely elements of like this manhood for him particularly, because he's so young, you know, and so his own, I think, inner conflict with that, and like being a man, and
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
just coming to terms with facing his destiny.
And they also exhibit the conflict between age, wisdom of age, and youth.
Totally.
Sure.
The idealism of youth and the cynicism, or maybe the pragmatism of being old and having seen all of
Right,
this.
one a little more cynical, the other one being a party loyalist, because that's how he's been brought up. And even though he's seen the horrors of war, it was brought up believing that if he doesn't fight, he's a coward.
One last question for both of you.
Okay.
The ending does leave the viewer wondering what possibly would happen to these men next. And I'm not going to spill the beans for anyone who hasn't seen the film, but what do you think happens to these men?
I prefer not to say, because I really believe that the ending was intended to be more of a Lady or the Tiger scenario, where it's really for the viewer to decide. And I think that was very intentional on the part of Wade Jackson to make it that way.
So where's the film going next, and how does our audience find out about the film? The website?
The website is decimationfilm.com, and we're also on Facebook. And it's going to be playing at Tacoma Film Festival next, which is
I believe
just
October 7th?
October 7th.
Yeah, October 7th.
In just a couple of weeks, and it's actually playing with a ton of other really great Pacific Northwest films at that festival.
Good. Well, our friends in Tacoma can look forward to seeing Decimation. Stefan Hajek,
Yes,
good
pleasure.
talking with you.
Thank you.
And Rosalie Miller, good talking with you, the co-producers of Decimation.